So happy to have the Mark Fisher on the show today. Mark, we were talking just before the show about a few things and kind of like hitting some of the high levels. And I really believe that there's a lot in common in the way that we think. I had a chance to read your book. I had a chance to go over some of the notes. You give a lot of gold nuggets in there. And even your book itself is a marketing tool, right? Because you've got all the you got all the stuff in there, and you can keep going deeper. It is literally the little book of gym marketing. And as I was getting into it, I'm reading, and then it's like, oh, but I want to know more. So there's more opportunity to learn what Mark has done. And if you guys don't know who Mark Fisher is, he is the mastermind behind kind of like what I would say, like the unique unicorn gym upstate. And
it's actually
he's got this thing figured out in New York City.
Yeah, even weirder and more appropriate for a weird gym. Yes.
And I mean, you've been crushing it. I mean, for the past several years, you've just been, crushing numbers. You've got this model figured out to a point where, like we were talking earlier, it kind of runs on its own. And I think that's a challenge a lot of gym owners have, is trying to figure out how they can get to a point where they can branch off and venture into other things, which you are doing now, right? You're getting into franchise, not franchising your business, but getting into another brand of franchising. And you've written a book, you're, all over the place. You've got a lot of things going for you. So I kind of want to just talk a little bit about, just give a brief introduction for those who don't know you like I've learned about you.
Yes. So the shortish version is, yes, I'm probably most well known for running a very unusual gym in New York City called Mark Fisher Fitness. And MFF was born out of two things: my time as a professional actor who had a lot of friends in the theater community that I didn't feel were particularly spoken to by the people that I most followed in the industry, because the other love I had was pretty serious, rigorous strength and conditioning. So for listeners familiar, I often say I come out of the Perform Better, tnation.com, strengthcoach.com corner of the industry. And I was very passionate about best-in-class training. And I knew that my friends would benefit from it, but that the people that I loved were maybe not the right delivery mechanism for this information to my friends. So the tagline of Mark Fisher Fitness is ridiculous humans, serious fitness. So we're very serious about the fitness, but it's just a very strange and colorful place. So as an example, we don't call our members clients, we call them ninjas. And we don't call our facility a gym. It's the enchanted ninja clubhouse of glory and dreams. And our mascot is the unicorn, and it's colorful and it's strange. And surprisingly, people find it acceptable. So it's been a very interesting journey. We moved in at the very end of 2011. So whatever that works out to. So I think we're in our 13th year or 14th year, something like that. And it has taught me many lessons, some of which we can go into here. We've had a lot of ups. Fortunately, we have done some pretty crazy revenue numbers, all things considered, and a lot of challenges, times where, going through COVID in New York City wasn't easy. The business around that's long is constantly tensioning between needing to refresh itself and rebuild itself versus honoring its legacy. So that's the main thing that a lot of people first heard about before, if you've heard about me. Secondly, I have another business called Business for Unicorns. That's where I spend most of my time. And that is a company that is devoted to working with gym owners to create more income, more impact, and more freedom. And for that business, we primarily do that through both a coaching group and a 12-week marketing sprint. And then I do a lot of speaking and keynoting and a little bit of consulting on the side. And then the last business is recent, which is a holding company that I invested in with an operating partner that plans to open up a bunch of units of an emerging small group personal training franchise called Alloy, run by former podcast guest, friend of the show, Rick Mayo. Mm-hmm. So all of those things keep me very busy. I do think it gives me something of an unusual perspective, a broad array of understanding between the gyms I coach and the New York City gym and the Northern New Jersey gym and being in franchising. And I love gym stuff. And I think and talk about it all day long. So happy to be here and think about it and talk about it with you, Michael.
Well, that's why you're here. I love it, man. So, if you guys are paying attention and listening, probably one of the things that you can take away very quickly is that Mark is busy. Okay.
Yeah.
But he created that for himself. And you, as a gym owner, you're listening to this and you're going, I'm stuck here at this point. Most gym owners are in a position where maybe if they're lucky, they're averaging 40K a year in annual revenue in their pocket, right? They might make significantly more than that on their books, but they're only taking home about 40K a year. And that's common, right? That's a very common thing.
Average.
And this is hence the reason why your coaching business exists. And you figured out a formula that works for you and works for a lot of other gym owners. They unfortunately, not all of them get to have ninjas at their gyms or studios. Some of them are just working with clients, but the reality is what you've put together has really transformed the way a lot of other gym owners work. I even know someone personally who's gone to your program, gotten coaching from you, and it's helped them with their business. Mm-hmm. So when I think about this, and you guys and gals are listening to this show, one of the takeaways as Mark and I are talking is kind of like, how do you get into that position, Mark? I mean, you were in theater, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't get a ton of time in theater, but I got an opportunity to be on stage doing Faust, which was a fun act. Nothing huge, is local. And I ripped my pants right down the back because the suit didn't fit me very well.
Perfect.
I was a stand-in. So needless to say, working with some of those friends on stage, a lot of them, to your point, going to a fitness center wasn't the same thing that I would say all of them would do, at least in that category for the people that I was with. They wouldn't train like I would. But what I find is that you go from a completely different area of focus in theater to fitness. How did that happen first? Because I want to try and break down how you got to this point of identifying a system or a formula. Maybe just very analytical and systems and formulas are the things for you, but how did that happen?
Yeah. When I was in my 20s, I think I'll start there. I was super into fitness personally. I worked out a lot, which is probably the way a lot of people start. And as I kind of alluded to, what happened is throughout my 20s, I started first training friends for free. And then as an actor, you need to fill in the gaps. So then it became a day job. And I worked for several years as an independent personal trainer in New York City. And looking back on it, although it was not necessarily what I was intending to do, what I did was I built a niche. I built an insular community where everybody knows each other, that it's not unlimited, huge. I mean, it's not, a Broadway community is not infinite, but it's a lot of people and they're all clustered around a physical location. And I think that's what's important. And we can talk a little bit about what we did well. We can talk a little about what we didn't do well. But one of the things that I think we should name are the pieces where there was an element of luck at play, right? So that's a very hard thing to replicate, to have a quite large community that's also very insular, that is clustered around a physical location. And that wound up being very helpful once we ultimately opened up the gym. What happened was, as I got slightly more serious about the business of fitness, I started to be more interested in training people than I was in pursuing acting gigs. I started reading business books very intensively, and Mark Fisher Fitness was largely born out of my experiments with starting to try out some group stuff, which at the time was happening, but this was 2010. So you had CrossFit was a thing. The boutique fitness studios were already on the rise. But my take was perhaps slightly different because, frankly, I didn't really know those worlds that well. I had only ever done personal training, and it was, and I mean this is a compliment to myself, pretty nerdy personal training, right? I worked with pretty serious strength and conditioning mentors. And when the gym finally happened, I had done enough reading about business and I was modeling enough things were working well that I did a few things I think worked for me, right? And I'll share these in the spirit of potentially some takeaways. So one thing that is maybe the hardest thing to replicate outside of having that community I mentioned was a Purple Cow brand. So if you ever read Seth Godin, He has a book called Purple Cow because, of course, people don't remark on a brown cow, but a purple cow is remarkable. People will mention it. And I knew enough to understand that, first of all, this would appeal to my avatar. And I think that's an important point. This is something that would appeal to the people that I wanted to work with. Second of all, it's something that was authentic to me because I was, and still do, frankly, monetizing my eccentricity, right? I was leveraging things that were authentic to me. It didn't feel uncomfortable because I am an eccentric person. So I oftentimes, a lot of the naming conventions, a lot of the symbolism would often start with, wouldn't it be funny if? And I do have to double check that to say like, okay, is that also, does that make sense? Right. Because sometimes some things are funny and they're either actually not practical or maybe actually a bad idea for the business. So that really served me. But I think the other thing that I would name here, which is maybe a little bit of an intro to this free book you can download if you're interested in, is I think, do a good job of really pulling together the database of people that I already knew, that already had some like and trust about me, that would be open to maybe hiring me if I gave them offers and I marketed to them. So because I had been an actor and because I had worked a lot, but I didn't do very long runs, and I had had a series of humiliating day jobs in New York City, and I'm a pretty friendly person, I just knew a lot of people. So an unfair advantage I had when we opened up that first location, I had personally trained more than 100 people in the 12 months prior, which was admittedly, and I had probably trained maybe, let's say, another like 50 to 70 before that in the previous parts of my career. But doing one-on-one, obviously, you don't get massive numbers because a full book is going to be 20, 25 people. And what I did do is I actually did a good job of keeping together my contact database, of tagging people and from my personal Gmail, which I used at the time. So when the business launched, I had several thousand people that I actually knew. Several hundred of them had been clients at one point. So I already had this big, relatively speaking, I had a big audience that allowed me to grow the business pretty quickly. Now, the other thing that I think we could have been more intentional about that also really facilitated the business's growth, it was, again, a lot of this is the right time, the right place. I got lucky. I hired the right people. Results are now typical. But the referrals basically drove most of the business. Now, I'll tell you in a moment, that was something I later had to not work around, but that left some deficits that I later had to fill in some skill gaps, because that's not your 30-year plan. You're not going to open up a lot of different gyms of different brands of different markets. You're not going to coach gym owners if your only strategy is, well, just talk to the 4,000 people that you're already friends with, and then just be so good that they drag their friends in by their hair in spite of you not even having a very easy way for them to refer. I don't recommend it, but that is frankly what happened for us, right? The delivery was very, very good. And again, that's luck. I had the right people, because we did $1 million our first year. We scaled up to 4 million in a single unit by our fourth year. So those numbers are pretty unusual, but it also meant I had some gaps. So I'll maybe pull up there, Michael, just in case you have some interjections, but it might also be now useful to talk about some of the things that I didn't do that I've only learned over the past few years that have made me a lot, I think, more effective at not just business coaching, but also a guy that has to make money in my own gyms for me to keep the lights on and pay my staff.
So I do want to interject here on a couple things. So one thing that you said was you would grab the local list of people that you knew. Like you were good at keeping a list of information of customers. And I think going through this process, having a software company, and we do a lot of migrations from different software companies over to our product. And when we do this, a lot of times the things that we run into is their customers don't have, guess what? Email, phone number, address, date of birth. No. So you don't, this plays to your point of your avatar, right? Yep. So now if you're in a business where you have a lot of customers and you want to do some marketing, you have almost like an empty list, because you have names of people, but you don't have any other information about them. So it's quite difficult to identify, like, who is the person that's visiting my club the most? Yeah. Who is the person that is really there? So can you hit on how, because you have this in your book, you have kind of like the breakdown of how to identify who your avatar is. Yeah. So can you just real quickly go over why it's so important. Number one, to have to maintain that database, because you were probably doing it with like a spreadsheet or something initially, like most of us do. But why it's so important to maintain that database of customers so that way you can keep reaching out to them. Because you even go into in your book about utilizing the social channels and feeds, and connecting with people and how frequently you gotta have those touch points. But why that's important, and then also how you kind of create this avatar. How is it that you create the avatar if you have none, right? You're brand new business. You're just starting.
Yes. So I just understand you're asking, how did I create the database, or how I suggest other people should?
So why the database is so important, and then how you create your avatar. Even if when you have a database and when you don't have one at all.
Yep. So the database is your lifeblood. And I'll tell you this is again where results are not typical, because working with gym owners, and this might be some of you listening, sometimes, even though this is still one of the very first things I have anybody I work with do, I think it's that important. You might even run into an issue where, look, if you just opened up at the gym and you just moved to the area, or maybe you're just not particularly social and you haven't been in the game very long, you don't have that many former clients. You don't have that many unconverted leads. So you just don't have a big database of explicitly professional contacts. And while I very much believe you should make sure that anybody you would say hello to in a grocery store is hearing from you on some regular cadence, so they do not forget how you might be able to help them, or importantly, help their friends with their fitness if the need arises. You might not even have a lot of personal contacts. And if that's the case, put a pin in this, because we'll get back to this in a moment, because I do think then you need ways to generate the leads. But if you have this database, and the good news is this should grow over time, well, this is the lifeblood of your business, because over time you get to nurture this audience through ideally some regular email contact. And admittedly, not every person is an email person. So in 2024, there's some other strategies that we might also want to consider to keep that relationship alive. But in practice, most people do check their emails. So if you were able to even once a week send out some email to your contact database, and we won't get in the weeds here about what you send them. I wouldn't say it's not important at all, but it's things that are helpful to them that allow you to also consistently make invitations. You're being generous with marketing, right? So we love about Seth Godin. Marketing, I'll be honest with you, I don't always respond to a lot of like the 70s style, slam them, kill them all, and let God sort out the bodies, direct response marketer, and listen, I've learned a lot from that crew too.
See what sticks.
Yeah. I've learned a ton from that crew. Whereas I think I've always leaned a little bit more towards the Seth Godin marketing as an act of art and creativity and generosity. And by that frame, it is ungenerous to not tell the people in your neighborhood that you're friends with, or your wife's friend that she went to college with that's in your neighborhood, or right?
You're actually doing a disservice to the people around
so
you.
I think one potential action step here before I chat a little more about the avatar is, if you don't already have this is a good thing to do. If you, and I weep to think of this, Michael, I weep to think of someone migrating explicit professional contacts and not having any contact information for. Now, the good news is I do have to say this.
Oh, they have name and last name.
Yeah.
And how much they charge them every month. They've got
now I assume you contact them somehow, right? So I assume that it's not that you never have contacted them except when they've come in. So I imagine you have a phone number and email somewhere. I imagine you have
probably somewhere.
You have an unfun clerical task in front of you. But the reality is, a couple hours of tedious work to literally look through your emails, look through the database, because any email provider you use is going to automatically save people you're in dialogue with as a contact. You can look through your phone. You can even hat tip to my friend Stu Brower for this pro tip. You can download the CSV file and sort by zip code. So you can get it if it's not on the booking billing platform, but my gosh, this is a great opportunity, and you'll work with Michael and he'll help you, and you won't do that anymore. And then going forward, that list will grow. So over time, you have ideally a growing list of people that know you exist, and then over time come to like and trust you. And then people don't buy when we're ready, they buy when they're ready. But the people you're in communication with, so at the right moment, they see some invitation for a possible next step, and it happens to be the time, and then they move forward. So that's a little bit about the database. To speak to the second half of the question about why an avatar is so important and how to go about creating one, well, the avatar allows you to zero in on the person you are most driven to serve. Part of this is...
Okay, I'm going to pause you for a second. I'm going to pause you for a second, because this is exactly what a lot of people are thinking, right? They're going, what do you mean the person that I'm zeroing in on? I have a gym. Everybody from 18
I can
or
help
12,
anybody.
If their parents signed for them, to 80 can come to my gym and work out. That's my avatar. So can you zero in on this, please? Because that is like the most broad spectrum. And I think a lot of gym owners are in that thought process.
Totally. And you're probably also saying, which we understand, you're probably also saying, but why would I be turning away people I can help, right? I've not only got this incredibly diverse skill set, but now I'm not even helping these other people I can help, and I'm turning away money. You're asking me to not take the money when I so badly need to grow my business. So thank you for sharing your concerns, imaginary listener. Let me assure you that we're not saying turn away money. We're not saying you can't help more than one person. What we're saying is, with a client avatar, counterintuitively, by getting crystal clear on one specific person, one persona, ideal client profile, there's a lot of different names for this. Counterintuitively, you can speak, I believe, more universally. So the metaphor I often hear that I quite like is, your avatar is the center of a bullseye, and you're speaking to one specific person. You're building the business around this person, and then other people will come along, right? And to be clear, you're a geographically constrained business. While I do think the avatar, my personal suggestion is make it one person, either an imaginary person, if you're not open, that is representative of who you love to work with. For most people listening, you've worked with some clients. You're not coming this totally fresh. So this might be an amalgamation, or perhaps really based off, the client that you work with, where every time you see their name on your schedule, you're thinking, oh yes, I Mrs. Rossini tonight. This is awesome. And you're so excited. And even at the end of a long day, you've been on the floor for 10 hours and Mrs. Rossini shows up and you're like, it's emotional Miller time. I can't wait to hang out with this weirdo and have fun. And we're going to train hard and have a good time and catch up. So you're looking to build your business, I think, with that energy of the person you feel most called to serve. And then in practice, listen, to not bury the lead here, when you go to discuss things like a website headline or an offer, you're not going to have on the website headline, Mark Fisher Fitness, we help, and this isn't for Mark Fisher Fitness incidentally, but hypothetically, at Mark Fisher Fitness, we help 37-year-old dads that are divorced that make between $175,000 and $185,000 and used to be high school athletes and are focused mostly on hypertrophy, but more so the upper body. Like, listen, that's great detail for the avatar, but to be clear, and I do think you want to go that deep with your hypothetical person, but on the website itself, you're going to go a little broader, right? And I would argue even on the website, some call out of who it is you help is how I think of a headline, right? A headline is who you help, how we help them, what outcomes we get them, and exactly what this kind of person should do next. In most situations, the who you help does need to have some brackets. The most common one is going to be things like, we help ... We help people over 40. We help busy professionals over 35. We help busy professionals and parents. We help ... right? We help residents of X neighborhood. So there's different ways you can bracket it, and it's usually going to be bigger than one specific person. But again, counterintuitively, going deep on that one person and getting very clear on where your ideal client spends their time, the media they consume, the organizations they're affiliated with, it will help you understand where to market, because we want to fish where the fish are. And then by understanding their psychographics, if the first bucket is their demographics, by understanding their psychographics, we understand what are their wants, what are their long-term dreams, what are their short-term frustrations, and what are their long-term nightmares? What are the things that keep them awake at night that they're terrified about? And the clearer you get with that half, you will have information not so much about where they are, but about what's going on in their head, how to enter the conversation already going on in the prospect's mind, where you can speak specifically to the benefits that they want, to address specifically the pain points that they're looking to alleviate. And in practice, although the exercise we're proposing here is dig in on one persona, there will be other people that have similar benefits that they wish to have. They have similar outcomes. Because one common, I think, missed opportunity I see sometimes on gym websites are, even if it's we help and that's specific enough, and I'm not saying it needs to literally be formulated like that, but frankly, it makes it simple if you do. So let's say we help X, we help busy professionals over 40. Instead of achieving the outcome that their ideal client would actually be, the words they'd actually be using at night before bed, they do something that's either not particularly clear, or it's clever, or if it's reflective of something that's important value of the gym owner, the fitness professional that they want to brand, right? We help busy professionals over 40 achieve sustainable and lasting fitness results. Okay, just in case I've triggered you, if that's your website headline, I wouldn't say that's wrong. However, I would make the point that even if your clients have reflected that back to you, it's probably a reflection of the way you've indoctrinated them, which is good. And that's good that speaks well of your culture and maybe for retention. But most avatars, and I just pick on that particular one because it's a version of one I see a lot that I think misses the boat, particularly if you're working with Gen Pop, right? Gen Pop is not thinking lasting fitness results. That's too general. It's not maybe right. They want something that they can sustain. Okay, I'll buy that. But it's usually like, I want to lose weight. I want to get strong. I want to feel like myself again. I want to be confident. I want to feel excited about my future, right? And I'm just kind of riffing here. And then frankly, there's not an unlimited number of outcomes that the general population client is looking for. Because I'll concede, and this will maybe close this section, and I'll open up for your interjections, Michael. I wouldn't say it's a ruse, but in practice, on the one hand, yes, I want you to dig in on the person. And then when you zoom out to what the outcomes are, what's going to look like on the website, for Gen Pop, there's not an unlimited number of things that are going to go on there. But if you don't put some of those triggers at the actual thing that they want, not at the thing that they say, but the thing that they really want, you're going to lose people. Because at a website, if you confuse, you lose. They're going to look at that hat tip to Donald Miller's Story Brand. They're going to look at the website, and if it's not immediately how you're going to help them survive or thrive, and exactly why they should click on the big red button for the next step, they're out.
So I'm a gym owner, and I'm going, I need to change my website. I need to get data on my customers and go through my phone and emails to find this information. And I'm trying to drive traffic. I would rather just go pay for ads and hire an ad agency just to give me one of those, we help men over 40 get fit, and I'm looking for 12 people, right? So that happens a lot because they're just looking to drive revenue. Because they're in a hurting pain. They're making $40,000 a year, and they were thinking that this belief of opening a fitness business was going to provide them with 6 or 7 figures. And guess what? I get to work out all day long and help people and do what I like doing. But I think the picture gets completely missed. So this requires extreme time management and strategy and a collective, collected mind thought process of how you're going to put all this thing together. And I know that you've got this all laid out. But where do they start?
Yeah.
Right. They're in that position. Where are they going to start? They want most of, and you tell me, but I could be totally off on this, but the people that I run into when I'm talking to them about business, the thing that they want is more money. They want to drive more oftentimes traffic, more revenue.
Yep. Yeah. In the beginning, everybody wants money, and then they want to fix the relationships because they're stressful. And then they want to understand what to do with their time. That seems to be the progression. But at the beginning, yes, it's your lifeblood. Your business isn't making money and you're not making your mortgage. It's real hard to think about other stuff.
So where do they start in that scenario? What's the quick thing you would recommend right now today that they can take action on walking away from this podcast?
So if you needed a quick thing to drive leads right now, the first thing that absolutely has to happen, even if you don't have a website up, even if you don't have an avatar, even if you don't want to go back to your previous clients, though, if I'm being honest, that's probably where I would start. That's exactly where you should start. Like email those people and start making invitations. But let's say you don't know any of them. Okay. So I don't know anybody. I don't have time to have an avatar. I don't want to build, I don't even have a website up, but I need to get clients. What do I do? Well, then you're left with the scariest, least sexy, and most important strategy I believe you can adopt, which I like to call go talk to strangers. Go talk to strangers. Now, listen, this is, and I would say your other option, like let's make space. The other option is pay for digital leads, right? I'm not discounting that out of hand. The reality is there's very much a time and a place where if you have the budget and you don't have the time, that is absolutely the fastest way to get you leads this week. However, there are some costs associated with this. Number one, it is going to cost you money. You're going to need to spend money to acquire the leads. Number two, in a lot of situations, if you need it done this afternoon, you're not going to have time to learn how to do it yourself, though. I might make the case, actually, a lot more gym owners probably should be running their own ads than do. A lot of people throw out their hands and have agencies do it. And listen, there's a place and a time where you probably should do that because it's not a good use of your time. So let's say you're willing to invest the time and money, or I would say the money to have an ad agency start to run ads. You will start to get leads, but you also have to understand two things. Number one, these leads are going to be colder. They're going to be colder. The iOS has changed the game. Also, audiences are more sophisticated. A lot of them are blown out. It's like trying to pet a deer. Now, the reality is, at some point, I think you're going to want to layer in digital ads. I think it's hard to be a mature business and not have some paid lead acquisition strategy. But these people, it's going to feel unfair and frustrated, right? So I say on behalf of my many friends that own ad agencies, they get yelled at by gym owners all day long. Your throughput is not going to be intensely high. So even if you get 100 leads, depending on how good you are at the follow-up and sales and offer, and those are all big ifs, we're looking at 10, 15, maybe 20 members, which again, that would be great for a lot of you, but that's 100 leads. Depending on your market, that might be 40, 50 bucks per lead. And also most markets don't have an unlimited number of people in them, right? At a certain point, everybody in your market has seen your ads. So there definitely can be a place for paid digital. So yeah, maybe that's one thing you consider. Your other option, which is also not without its costs, but does happen to be free, is go meet strangers. And that's why the very first thing you got to do before anything is you got to have an offer. Now, I'd make the case, it actually shouldn't take you that long to put up an avatar. You should probably hire a place to do your website and put in some automations for you anyway. It's not that much money, so you probably should just do that. And again, truly, if I were working with you, I'd be like, just grind it out, take 2 weeks, get your database going, do these things. But then when you want to grow your audience, when you want to generate more leads, I think having an offer to go talk to strangers about where they can come and try out what you do is going to be very, very important. Now, the offer you make, and this is where it gets very hard, and this is, I would concede, I think is the biggest challenge of writing the book that I wrote that you're welcome to check out is, I work with a lot of different types of owners and different types of models, right? So what the offer is going to vary whether you do personal training or small group or classes, if you have room for 50 people per class. So I'm happy to dig into more specifics there if you think it's useful, Michael. But at the very least, the thing that is inarguable is you have to have a clear, this is the first thing that you do. If you don't have a clear, compelling, something that is a really good value, and it might be actually, maybe you're spending a lot, maybe it's an expensive thing and it's just really a ton of value, or maybe it's a true, free, easy to get started thing. You have to figure out what is the compelling offer that gives people an obvious and easy way to get started with you. And again, that's going to go on the website too. But technically, listen, if you don't have any bandwidth and you're a one human band and you don't even have the website and you want to go into the Stop and Shop of the grocery store, like the one we have next to my facility in New Jersey, and just start talking to strangers, that can work. It's going to be scary for some of you. I think there's some nuances to do that well, but there used to be a world where we didn't have digital marketing. And the world before digital marketing, unless you wanted to send a direct mail campaign, all you had was go and talk to strangers. So I'll pull up there, Michael, as I'm sure you'll have some interjections and additions.
Yeah. Can you give me an example? Let's role play this one a bit. Give me an example of going and talking to strangers.
Yep.
It sounds like a talk show here.
Yeah. Yep. So
what's the example? What's the offer, and how do I put it together so that way I can frame it from what you're
Yep.
doing?
So an example of one that I love, which understands, so we're going to acknowledge these are not people that search for you on Google, right? This is literally a stranger, right? Now, let's say you're in the parking lot of a Target, or you're waiting online in a coffee shop and there's someone behind you and you just strike up a conversation because you're friendly and also you're a local business owner. That's a large part of your job, is to obliterate obscurity. You want to become 3 to 5 mile famous. You want to start a convo. And the easiest way to start that convo is with the magic phrase, do you live in the area? Or if you're in the parking lot, hi there, excuse me, do you live in the area? And that's how it begins. That's how you start, right? And ideally, you're walking around at all times wearing your swag. At all times, you're branded, you're smiling, you're looking professional, you're ready to engage with people. Now, here's the thing. Not everybody's going to engage with you. You'll have some people say, no, I don't. Sometimes that will be true. Sometimes they don't want to talk to you, and that's okay too. But a fair number of people.
So what's the response after that?
Then most times people will be like,
no, I don't live in the area.
Oh, you don't live in the area? Okay, yep, no worries. Have a good one. I just let them go, right? Because I only have so much time, right? Yeah. So,
exactly,
you don't live in the area, no problem.
So I do live in the area. Yeah, no, I'm here. I live
okay, by. Amazing. Well,
why?
Michael, I am owner of a new small group personal training studio called Alloy Personal Training. Have you heard of Alloy by chance?
I've heard of something like that.
Okay, yeah, amazing. Well, Alloy is a locally owned small business. We're new to the area, and what it is personal training in a small group setting. And we use a science-backed method called functional training. And simply put, Michael, what that does is it helps you burn fat, build muscle, and stay injury-free. And because we're new to the area, Michael, what we're doing is we're offering local residents like you 2 free workouts. It's absolutely no pressure. I'd love for you to come in and try what we're doing. I'd love the chance for you to see how amazing it is, and hopefully you'll stick around. But if not, I would just love to help support you as a local resident of our community. Michael, let me ask you this. What's your best contact information? Now, again, sure. And I kind of pulled that out of my butt, right? But that's like kind of the game. You know, it's not any more complicated than that. And your takeaway for people listening, because this really is where people get hung up. And this makes sense because it sounds good in theory. And keep in mind, my friends, I just did this like a month ago, right? This is why, because I had to bring my team into the parking lot in New Jersey, because full disclosure, at MFF, we haven't done a lot of this. Now, can you do it in Midtown Manhattan? You can, but it's not my favorite play in that market, because when you ask, do you live in the area? First of all, there's hundreds of people, and they might live in New York, but maybe they're there for brunch. They don't live in the area usually. So you'll find locals. I'm not saying it won't work there. Frankly, we probably should do more of it. But the full disclosure is this is not a play that I relied on much in Midtown Manhattan, in this, in the maelstrom in the center, right by Times Square. Right. But in a suburban market where we are in a strip mall, when the people are going to the Stop and Shop, a lot of times they live in the area. So one takeaway is, if you're interested in this strategy, is first of all, I do realize it's uncomfortable. So I want to say, like many things in life that are valuable, it's uncomfortable at first, and it will get better with reps. And in order to do this well, you have to have some script for what you're going to say. You have to have some, and again, it doesn't need to be any more complicated than what I did. I haven't rehearsed that one because I've been doing it recently. I think it's pretty close, and I probably would have done the trick. But in practice, you'll need your version of where do you live, followed up with amazing. My name is such and such. I work at such and such right over there. We do this particular thing. For this particular person, we're the perfect way to get this specific results. And I'm wondering, would you be interested in Thing? Would you be interested in coming in for free InBody? Would you be interested in coming in for 2 free workouts? Would you be interested in trying us out for 14 days unlimited for $1? Fill in the blank, right? Now, this strategy, I think, if you want to play it on easy mode, that I don't think is as effective, you can just have a postcard, a business card, you give them it with a QR code, and you let fate go in their hands. This is not as effective because you don't have their contact information. And again, these are not people that have Googled you. They're not high intent people. They're going to the Stop and Shop. They're looking to get berries or whatever, right? So we have to, I think, have some understanding of that. But if you want to play it on hard mode and win, the best way to do this is ask for contact information. Now, will everyone give it to you? No, a lot of people won't. And will people be annoyed at you? Yep, some people be annoyed. Will 1 out of 100 persons, 100 people call the cops on you? Yep, they'll call the cops on you, and then you'll sell the cop into a membership. Absolutely fine. So you have to be willing to do this because there's no other choice, right? If you're unwilling to pay for leads, if you don't know anyone, you don't have a lot of clients to refer, this is all you have left. Now, listen, you can do it maybe at a live event to do it a little bit more scale, right? That's a version of Meet Strangers. You can also develop partnerships with other local businesses and promote for each other. That's a different version of this. And those are also great strategies. But I'll tell you what I love about Meet Strangers is if you talk to, let's say, 10 people per week for a year, that's 500 people in your community. And I'd only count them if they get through, hey, do you live in the area? Right? If they say no, I wouldn't count them. So I would challenge you, talk to 10 people that live in the area. And your goal, most of all, I think, is to have a positive energy exchange. Maybe they're like, oh, that I just don't like to work out. I hate working out. Like, okay, amazing, right? Like, I just want you to have a good experience with the brand, with me, with the energy. And not only would a gym owner talk to 500 people if they do 10 people per week, which is not nothing, but that's still doable, even if you're very busy.
Not a lot.
And what's more valuable than getting leads, than growing awareness in the community? But if you have, let's say, 2 trainers or 2 people on your staff that you can train them up, give them a script, give them an offer, and track on a weekly basis to ensure they're also having 10 conversations with strangers per week, well, now that's 30 per week. That's 1,500 per year. That's 4,500 conversations over 3 years. Now, I want to acknowledge this isn't as fast as pressing buttons on the Meta machine. It's just not. I think throughput will tend to be a bit better. And I think over the long tail, it's very hard to replicate the type of brand awareness that can come from this. And it doesn't happen overnight. But gym owners, I know it's hard because you see a lot of things on the social media. I think some people are still in many ways perverted by a certain era where you really could just put money in Facebook and Google and make money.
Oh, yeah.
But in practice, it's the law of the farm. You will reap what you sow. It is not reasonable to think that you do not need to plant seeds, that you do not need to till the land, that you can go right to harvesting seeds that you never planted and soil that was never tilled. I realize this is very old timey. I'm a very big fan of the Stephen Coveys and the Jim Rohns, right? But I think we also, as business owners, as humans, are subject to the law of the farm. So yes, if you need leads and money overnight, sure, there's a time and place for paid digital. You're going to have to do a lot of follow-up. You're going to need really strong automations. You need to make sure the offer is dialed in. But once you have your offer in place, start now to become 3 Mile famous. Go meet people in your community. And I promise you, this isn't going to change your business overnight. But if you really want the type of freedom we started our conversation talking about in 2 years, over time, you can't help but become well-known in your community, particularly if your goal is every time I see the person, I'm just going to be a source of light and fun and warmth and kindness. And they will also meaningfully impact your business within, I don't mean to make it sound like it's years, but you will start to impact your business over time.
I like what you said because we actually did this for one of our clubs. And for those of you listening, try not to, because we did this for one of our clubs. And when we were going out teaching, to Mark's point, other coaches and trainers, we had some trainers that would take the script and have it in front of them.
Oh,
they'd be reading the script, talking to people. We're going, oh no, please don't do that. So don't do that. Don't make that mistake. And the script has to be your own, as Mark is saying. I mean, make it your own. So you are yourself, right? You don't have to be Mark. Be who you are and have that conversation and be real with people. Mark, there's so much more I wanted to get into today because you got so much to offer. I mean, we were going to talk about bringing staff on and how you let them go because Mark just recently had to go through some of those things. Talking about franchising and getting involved in other businesses and even other business owners that you have to get involved with and how that works. And then time management. I mean, there's so much material that you've garnered over the years that you've learned and acquired and refined and improved upon. And I want to have you back on because I know that your time is limited. This is part of time management, right? Right. You schedule yourself for a certain amount of time to be able to do these things. But I want everyone just to, if you missed anything on the show, please just rewind it. I'm going to put some stuff in the show notes that Mark has that you guys will be able to take away. He's got a fantastic book out. It really is a quick read. It didn't take me long. I just read it in an evening, and a lot of great material there. He's got a great business, to be able to get involved with what Mark teaches and coaches. I'll put his links there for that as well. And Mark, I got to tell you, it's an honor having you on the show. I love just listening to what you have to say, being not Insta famous, but really kind of like 3 mile famous, 3 to 5 mile famous. I like that. And, you become a natural marketer. I don't know if you went to school for marketing. It sounded like
Musical
it was more
theater,
for
yes.
theater. And
yes.
And you have some of these natural skill sets and built a fantastic couple businesses out of this. So I really appreciate it.
I want to acknowledge you and thank you so much. It's long time listener, first time caller. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for this opportunity to be on the show. I really hope that, I know we didn't get into everything we could have, but I hope that it was some actionable things that people can write down and really get some different results. And yeah, hoping this will be the first of some conversations we're going to have together.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it, Mark. Thank you so much.